All right, ladies and gentlemen, third video for this second unit. So Unit 2, Part 3, want to talk about witches, want to talk about a little bit of art, and then we're going to talk about that most unnecessary of events, the 30 Years' War and Cardinal Richelieu. Here we go. You have to understand European witch hunts in the greater context of an age of religious hysteria. That's when we go hunting for people we want to blame things on. Generally speaking, witch hunts, whether they be actual witch hunts after witches, or whether or not it's just an age where we're looking for scapegoats, like say for instance in the 1950s, when the United States is looking for communists within the U.S. Society. Witch hunts happen during times when we feel threatened, when we feel weak. We go looking for something to communally lash out against. And both Protestants and Catholics lashed out against witches in the 1550 to 1650 region because there's a lot of religious hysteria. 100,000 witches are killed in an effort to explain what they can't explain in any other way. They go out looking for witches as a way to pin the blame on somebody else. A lot of times those witches are women or older individuals living on the fringe of society. Maybe they're new to the area. We don't trust them. We find them to be a little bit mysterious. Perhaps there's a reluctance in the society to place any kind of help towards those people, and getting rid of them in a very ugly sense is a way of lessening the overall load upon the society. There's not much of a scientific explanation in the society in 1550. Now, by 1650, the elites of the society have kind of come around on this and begun to think that, witch hunting, that doesn't seem to make a great deal of logical sense. Now, it also becomes a very disruptive process. It's expensive to continue to have these trials all the time. And also the religious hysteria burns off by about 1650, and so people stop hunting witches. Now, do they go looking for scapegoats at other times? Of course they do. They blame people who are foreigners. They blame Jews. They blame religious minorities. People are always looking for someone to blame. That's true in 2015. It's true in 1550. It's an unfortunate part of human society. We don't want to blame ourselves, and so we find ourselves looking for someone who's the other in order to blame. The Mannerist movement and art. When we move out of the Renaissance period in the South, the Mannerist movement is art done in the manner of Michelangelo. And the greatest practitioner of this art is Greco. We're going to abandon that Renaissance style of being exact and precise to proportion. So, for instance, Greco's figures are all elongated out. He uses these really dark greens and weird yellows and blacks and grays, and is trying to put forward a more serious proposal of what's going on. Keep in mind, here's a guy who lived through the age of Philip II in Spain. Religious focus and religious dominance would have been his life. It's an absolute truth to say that everything is affected by that religious style. When we look at the art of the Baroque, we're looking at art that is a lot more movement-oriented, if you like, than Renaissance art. You can see the flow of the lines. It's not as distinct and clear as it has been in the past. You can look at it and see a lot of fleshy women. We're going to see a lot of chubby angels. We get this sense of the common man coming in order to do good, right? It's not like the Renaissance, the Southern Renaissance especially, where all of the people in the art are great nobles or important church figures. The average people make an appearance in Baroque art. Baroque art is very Catholic. It's the intention of the Catholic Church to try and stoke the feeling of religious fervor among the lower classes. Now, how many of them would have seen the art? A fair question. Not a lot. Okay, last page. And we begin with our man Cardinal Richelieu. Now, Richelieu is an odd cat indeed. Let's start with the title, Cardinal Richelieu. So he should be a cardinal, in other words, one step below the Pope within the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. But, as we will find, he's more of a political animal than he is a religious one. Richelieu believes that the way to gain power for Louis XIII, who he serves, the King of France, is to do everything possible to aid the strength of France. And if that means, from time to time, we're going to have to be religiously inconsistent, that's okay. Like, for instance, in France, Louis is going to end the rights of a lot of Calvinists to have walled cities, to own guns, to operate their own schools. So that Edict of Nantes, issued in 1598, is very quickly scaled back by Louis XIII or by Richelieu during his rule. That would seem to be a policy that supports Richelieu's focus on religious uniformity. But Once we go down this page and we look at the 30 Years' War, something we'll notice is that Richelieu is aiding the Protestant forces, not the Catholic forces during the 30 Years' War. So here's a guy in Richelieu who is able to say, on one hand, I am going to do everything possible to make religious uniformity within my realm because it makes France stronger, but then I am going to push religious pluralism or religious diversity in the territory on my side. And the reason that I'm willing to do that, I just knocked over my binder, I beg your pardon. And the reason that I'm willing to do that is because in both cases, France gets stronger. Religious uniformity within the realm makes me stronger. Religious diversity outside of it makes it stronger because that means the country to my flank is not going to be organized. It's going to be a mix of Catholics and Protestants, and I'm never going to have to worry about whether or not I have complete unity along that flank because there's not going to be a strong country there. What else did he do? He appoints a great deal of spies in order to go out and observe what's going on. He also raises taxes in order to make more money to pay these spies and to operate a larger, more efficient army. Richelieu's kind of a bridge in between Henry IV, who's taking religious things under control, and Louis XIV. Louis XIV is the absolutist, if you will. And it's Richelieu who introduces ideas under Louis XIII that then become the basis of the absolute monarchy of Louis XIV. Okay? What events and issues started the 30 Years' War? Well, there's the unsettled settlement of the Peace of Augsburg, which didn't allow for Calvinism. Mistake. There's the fact that you weren't allowed to expand Protestantism under the agreement at Augsburg, which was happening. Mistake. You've got the Catholics wanting to make war and end Protestant rights within all of these areas as well. Mistake, mistake, mistake. And then none of these are mistakes in a genuine sense, but they're a sign that Lutherans, Calvinists, and Catholics wanted war in the area. Now, here's the issue, and one of the reasons I call this kind of the silliest war ever, is that at the end of the war, Lutherans, Calvinists, and Catholics still held the territories, generally speaking, that they held. And all three of them had the right to worship. Okay, so the Calvinists gained a little bit, but not very much happens otherwise. Okay, the precipitating event of the war is that great defenestration of Prague, where the Catholic ambassadors are tossed out the window. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. I'll stop now. For your listening pleasure, I'll stop now. Okay? Also on the study guide, Gustavus Adolphus, leader of Sweden, who thought he might swoop in during the war using money from who? Richelieu. The French, in order to try and expand his Swedish empire. Gustavus Adolphus invades northern Germany and is doing great until he dies. Now, when we make the movie, we're going to have to change that because that's a plot killer. You can't kill off the hero in minute 42. That's not going to make for like a trilogy. You can't Hunger Games that. It's going to be hard. We're going to have to figure something out other than or something, okay? The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 ends the war and also provides that each of the German states within the area has both religious and political liberties. In other words, the Holy Roman Empire is gone. It no longer exists. Economic effects of the war just absolutely destroys the German landscape. There are towns, villages, cities that are gone. Population centers, finished. 30 years of constant marching and retreating and destruction and pillage and rape and murder, and it is a dirty, ugly scene. Okay? Politically, the only country that at the end of this gains any territory are the French. So well done, France, under the leadership of, you guessed it, Richelieu, and Mazarin, the minister who takes after over Richelieu's death. The French gain some territory here. But the more important factor is that the German states have been ripped apart by this and will not be unified anytime soon. Socially speaking, this is kind of the end of the religious wars. After 1650, people might fight the occasional war for religious purposes, but after this, it's economic, it's political, it's not religious much anymore. Study hard, ladies and gentlemen.